Ruta Randmaa is a Ukrainian cultural studies scholar and photographer who completed her bachelor's degree in cultural studies at the Ukrainian Catholic University in 2024. Her thesis, Shypit, Place, Practices, Communities, explored the cultural and social dynamics surrounding the Shypit festival, earning her the 2024 Yevhen Hulevich Award for Outstanding Research in the Humanities. Recognized for her interdisciplinary approach, Randmaa combines ethnographic and visual methods to examine post-Soviet identity, community practices, and contemporary Ukrainian cultural expression. Beyond academia, her photographic work has appeared in projects addressing the human experience of the war in Ukraine, highlighting her engagement with both cultural theory and documentary practice. This is a bachelor's thesis that explains what the Shypit Gathering in Ukraine really is, basically not a typical festival with organizers and tickets, but a self-organized, word-of-mouth meetup that's been happening for decades in the Carpathians. The author mixes her own experiences there with interviews of repeat attendees to show how people temporarily build a shared little world. They map the forest into named meadows, use special greetings and chants, make camps together, and hold rituals like the big bonfire. Using simple ideas from sociology/anthropology, think deep group vibes, pop-up community, and we feeling, she argues that Shypit lasts because it gives people a short, intense taste of connection, freedom, and belonging to a place, an alternative way of living that surfaces for a few weeks each year and then dissolves until next time. Shypit is an informal annual gathering that takes place near the Shypit waterfall in the Carpathian Mountains of Ukraine. It began in the early 1990s as a meeting of Ukrainian hippies and motorcyclists after the fall of the Soviet Union and has continued every July since then. Unlike typical festivals, Shypit has no organizers, tickets, or official structure. People simply come, camp, and co-create a temporary community. Over time it has become a living countercultural tradition, where participants, called Shypotayoni, build camps, share food, play music, perform rituals, and celebrate freedom and togetherness. The event embodies ideals of spontaneity, equality, and connection with nature, blending elements of spirituality, creativity, and social experimentation in a space apart from everyday social norms. The history of Shypit goes back to the early 1990s, just after the collapse of the Soviet Union. It grew out of the traditions of the Soviet-era hippie movement, particularly the hippie sessions that used to take place along the Goya River in Latvia during the 1970s and 1980s. When those gatherings ended after 1991 due to new borders, Ukrainian hippies and moto-hippies, motorcyclist hippies, led by figures like Grigory Greg Poritsky from Lviv, began meeting near the Shypit waterfall in the Carpathians. The first small gathering happened around 1992 to 1993, and by the following years, it had become an annual event that attracted hundreds of people. Over time, Shypit evolved from a simple meetup of friends into a unique, self-organized cultural phenomenon, a mix of festival, commune, and spiritual retreat that still takes place every summer, symbolizing freedom, community, and resistance to formal social structures. The author first reframes Shypit not as a fixed, ticketed festival, but as a gathering, an informal, free-form coming together. She settles on calling it a non-formal Shypit gathering, stressing that the term captures how it actually works on the ground, voluntary, unofficial, and shaped by participants rather than institutions. The subsection will do two things: 1. Lay out the main theories she'll use, and 2. Apply them to core questions like, what is Shypit, and how do participants experience it? Because Shypit grew out of 1960s-70s counterculture and looks a lot like the Rainbow Gathering, she uses Rainbow as a worked-out analog. Scholars have already analyzed Rainbow in depth, so she borrows their concepts and methods to make sense of Shypit, especially work by Chelsea Shelley, Ritual, Shared Experience, Spacemaking, and Katri Rasha, Alternative Spirituality. Those studies, in turn, draw on classic sociology/anthropology, Durkheim, Turner, Strauss, the Chicago School, which the author will also use for Shypit. A central lens is the idea of a social world. Drawing on Shelley's Rainbow research and on sociologist David Unruh, the author argues that Shypit, like Rainbow, functions as a social world, a form of social organization without sharp territorial, formal, or membership boundaries, whose edges are defined by interaction and communication rather than by permits or rosters. Seeing Shypit this way fits its lack of centralized authority and its communication-driven boundaries. Unruh's traits of social worlds also matter here, especially voluntary identification, easy in and out, and multiple identification. People can belong to several scenes at once. This maps well to Shypit, where no official body controls who comes and goes. To make those fuzzy boundaries visible, she turns to how participants construct place. Following Shelley, she uses negotiated order, from Anselm Strauss, to describe how Shypit's space and norms get made and remade via ongoing, informal agreements. While Strauss coined the term in hierarchical settings, like hospitals, Shelley adapts it to spontaneous, evolving, anarchic spaces like Rainbow, and the author adopts the same adaptation for Shypit. In practice, this means participants continuously negotiate how things are done and what places mean, rather than obeying a top-down plan. The most tangible proof of this constructed place is how Shypit is mapped and named. Beyond official geography, participants create and teach their own toponyms, the meadows, Polyani, first, second, third, plus places like Sunny, Moon, Jamaica, Olympus, and camp-based names like Reservation. These names aren't written anywhere. Newcomers learn them by word of mouth. During the gathering they become your address, a shared mental map sustained by communication, classic negotiated order in action. The same oral pattern holds for micro-traditions like the greeting Dobry Ranok / Good Morning and the chant EO. Finally, taking another cue from Shelley, the author treats the overall flow of the gathering as a kind of open, anti-dogmatic ritual staged in the cathedral of nature. In this view, Shypit's social world includes material and cultural rituals that heighten participants' sense of connection to each other and to the place itself, helping explain why people feel safe to practice personal or spiritual routines there, and why the site acquires special, shared meaning. Chapter 2 explains the shared feel of Shypit, how strangers quickly slip into warm, egalitarian togetherness, communitas, and experience intense group energy, collective effervescence, during drumming, dancing, and big moments like the bonfire, creating a powerful we're one organism sensation. It shows how this emotional surge and close, judgment-free contact flourish precisely because Shypit lacks institutions and roles, letting people be vulnerable and open with one another, which many describe as transformative and healing. The chapter also argues that the place itself becomes charged with meaning. Everyday acts can feel ritual-like, even finishing a last cigarette, and the site takes on a semi-sacred aura distinct from ordinary life, a sacred/profane split, deepening attachment to the land and to the temporary community built there. Finally, it details the varied community practices and alternative spirituality that thrive in this atmosphere, from chants and greetings to drumming circles, witchy Sabbaths, yoga, and sunrise walks, illustrating how the open, nature-based cathedral of Shypit invites personal ritual and meaning-making without dogma. The thesis concludes that the author's experiment worked. Concepts drawn from theory and her own experience were confirmed by other participants' accounts. In plain terms, Shypit is best understood as a tribal-style gathering where people forge spontaneous, egalitarian ties and co-build the place they inhabit for a short time each year. What keeps it going is a mix of attachment to the site, shared peak feelings, communitas and collective effervescence, and everyday practices like setting up camps and using unwritten norms that make individual freedom and the common good reinforce each other. Although Shypit often looks unstructured, the study shows there is structure, just one created from the bottom up by participants, leaving a productive tension the author suggests future research could explore further. As of 2025, the Shypit Festival, held annually near the Shypit waterfall in Ukraine's Carpathian Mountains, continues to take place even amid the ongoing war. Originating in the early 1990s from post-Soviet hippie gatherings, it has retained its informal, self-organized character centered on freedom, community, and nature. Despite disruptions from COVID-19 and the war, attendees report that the event has never been cancelled, with Zakarpatia's relative distance from the front lines helping sustain it. The festival remains small, largely word of mouth, and free of commercial influence, though wartime conditions have likely reduced international attendance and logistical support.